All right, we are live here. This is Smalltown Poets, and there we are.
Hey guys.
All right, we are going to be discussing our Rarities package just came out, and we're going to be discussing the evolution of Prophet, Priest, and King today. And if you're seeing this and you've got a question or just want to say hi, comment in the comments below and let us know where you're at. And yeah, we're going to be talking Smalltown Poets because that's what we do. And Danny may or may not be there. He's kind of frozen at the moment. We told him that he had to at least show his face for the beginning of this, but he may have to go incognito because, we lost him. Yeah. Well, it was inevitable.
He'll be back. He'll be back. He always comes back. And by rarities, he means more than just these faces you're looking at right now. I know these are rare, but
we've got Diego from Bolivia watching.
Hola. Welcome, Diego.
Yeah, we're an international band, guys. It's not just people in Atlanta that like Smalltown Poets. There's Danny again.
We're trying. What country is Danny in?
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, they don't have Wi-Fi. He'll be back eventually. Oh, we've got someone, Jory, from my neck of the woods up here. Danny, can you hear us now? We lost him again.
There's your answer.
All right, that might be how it goes. So we are going to be talking about some of the songs, specifically Prophet, Priest, and King, and the evolution of Prophet, Priest, and King. If you're on our email list or follow us on social, which I'm assuming since you are here, you probably do. You might have seen us post something about our Rarities box set. It looks like this. And in that is all sorts of goodies, but it also has there's 5 songs where we have our early demo and then sort of a mid demo state where the song's taking a little more shape, and then the final version. And for Prophet, Priest, and King, I have to say, you guys, I'm sure, were very familiar with the early demo. But I had not heard it. And when I heard it, this was just like 2 months ago when Danny sent it to me, I was shocked. I was shocked. And hopefully we get Danny back for this conversation because I wanted him here for this conversation. Here he comes.
How's that?
Will Danny survive?
I didn't do anything. Hey, but it's working now. It's working. Okay.
We've got Good. Bolivia, we've got Mississippi, we got Hazeldale, and we've got Baltimore. Hazeldale's in Washington.
Very
right?
cool.
It's and if you're joining us, we got more Alabama. If you're joining us, say hi in the comments. Let us know where you're at. And
Phoenix City.
We're going to be talking about Prophet, Priest, and King. Danny, are you with us?
I'm here now. Man.
Oh, he's looking good.
Wow! Look at you. Look at you.
Look strong. I've been on the road all day. Sorry. I'm disheveled. Am I disheveled?
You're sounding great. We finally have you instead of Robot Man.
You upgraded. Upgraded.
I did upgrade. I'm using the hotspot. My phone is a hotspot, so we're good.
There you go.
All right. We're talking the evolution of Prophet, Priest, and King, Danny. Tell us about it. That early demo. If you have that Rarities package we just released, you must check out the early demo of Prophet, Priest, and King.
So, Kevin, I've got a question.
Yes. Well, before that, Michael's got a question. His questions go first.
Because, we're insiders. We know what a demo is.
Oh, yes.
What's a demo?
Good question.
Actually, this is one of the things I wanted to talk about because I as a band, it'd be interesting to get everyone's take on our process. But, when a band is writing or recording, it's not like we just have finished songs come out of us. Usually it's not that. There's an idea. And usually, at least for us as a band, someone will have a musical idea, maybe a musical idea and a melody, or maybe, a full kind of complete song, but it's never like, this is the final song. So that demo is the original version that someone said, here's my song idea.
Right.
And what I find interesting about us as a band is that if you listen to these early demos, you realize that there's a lot of trust and patience involved in the songwriting process, and a lot of trust in each other's ability to hear something in an original idea or new idea or a very stripped down idea.
Yeah, the reason I was thinking about that is because I think the demo that you're talking about is just Danny. I think it was a songwriting tape idea recording that it may just be piano and Danny singing. I'm curious. I don't remember what the demo is exactly.
It's got guitar. It's a full band thing, but I don't even know who's playing guitar on it. I don't know if it was
It was even a rarity. Yeah. For me, I don't remember hearing that. It's been so long. I
don't know. Yeah, I think maybe it was in that Villanelle era. A previous band that some of us were in. But so I guess that I pretty much wrote that song. I don't remember any help from Michael at that point. But what happened? Is this where you wanted me to explain the evolution, Kevin?
Well, yeah, because it has that very iconic. The song people know and love has that very iconic bass line and has a certain feel, and this has none of that. And there's the link if you want to go get your copy right there. But yeah, Danny, start us off. Where was that even recorded at? Because I have no idea.
I don't know where it was recorded. I don't know where that was recorded. I have no idea. But what happened was, when we met Miguel in Nashville and he auditioned and so graciously began to play and tour with us, and this was before Kevin even hopped on the bus, who we also met in Nashville. But we were doing some touring. You were in school, man. You were at Belmont University. But Miguel was playing bass with us, and our bus broke down in California, somewhere near Anderson. And it was so bad. The bus was so broken. We couldn't afford to both have the bus repaired and to continue the tour. We had to pick one or the other, and we chose to stay in that town and keep pouring money into that bus for like 3 weeks trying to get it working, because we were just the opening band on this tour. We weren't headlining it. Miguel had written this song with another band that he used to have in Atlanta years before, and he had this song idea that we liked. And we decided to Frankenstein. That's the term we always use when we take these songs and mash them up together. So we took the Prophet, Priest, and King that I had been writing and that we demoed. We took Miguel's song. What was the name of that song? You Call My Name.
Mine was actually another demo that I had done in college, in my college years at Greenville College in southern Illinois. And it was a song for a studio class. I had a studio recording class. I wrote this song. And it was called Call My Name.
Yeah,
that's right.
And he had the acoustic guitar chords, those changes that you hear. That was there. And I had a different melody and things like that. But I played it for you guys. I don't remember if that was in California when we were broke down or even in the bus somewhere while we were traveling to another gig. I played that song for you guys, saying, all right, here we go, I got a song, a really cool song, we need to do this, it's called Call My Name, and I sang the whole thing. And
I remember.
Yeah, Danny remembers, and Michael and Danny just kind of went, can you let us have that so we can work on it?
Can we do something cool with that?
And they came back, I don't remember how many days later, they came back with what was now truly the genesis of Prophet, Priest, and King, as far as there was Danny's idea, which is what you hear, that very early demo that you hear in the Rarities package, which is
and I've got it right here. We're going to hear it in just a second. Finish your thought, and I'll play a little bit of it.
So they took that and they married that with the Call My Name song that I had played for them in the bus or somewhere. They married that. They took some of my progression, some of my melodies. They married that with that idea that Danny had and all those lyrics, about prayer and all that. And basically, there it was. There was a song, Prophet, Priest, and King. It still didn't have the bass line. That will come later. But the main map that we know now as Prophet, Priest, and King was born out of the the merge of those two song ideas, and at the time, I'll say this too. At the time, I was like, "Oh, you guys didn't like my song. You guys have to do something else with it."
Well, we pieced all that together in that living room in California, where we were stuck for 3 weeks. We worked up a lot of music that would eventually be on our eponymous debut right there in that living room. But I particularly remember working on Prophet, Priest, and King. Getting it together.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. I have that original demo here, and it's gonna pick it up through my mic, so it's not gonna sound as good as if you download it, but this will be good enough for people to hear. I'll just play a little bit.
Wow. That's Danny singing.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Ooh, different change there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It's so
This could have been on our last record.
Awesome.
That could have been on our last record.
And you know what, Kevin, speaking of trust, when we would throw these demos down, they were just for reference. I wasn't expecting anybody would ever hear that vocal. So thank you for posting it for the world to hear and making it for sale.
That was not bad, Danny.
No, that was not.
And Byron, that's
I
you on
always,
drums.
I always say you should sing more, and it's true.
And was that Byron on drums too and everything? That's you.
I don't remember.
It was Byron.
I vaguely remember. And if I did that, was that also in the living room? Did we play the little drum set?
Not for that.
I think that was before. I think we had that before we left Atlanta.
We might have done that in Todd Olson's basement. Todd from The Waiting.
It was one of those two places.
Church
yeah,
in the in that old.
It could have been either on that DA-88, that that second generation digital low budget recording that Tascam had, or it really could have been that cassette 4-track that I borrowed from Lee Moody.
I remember the way I remember hearing that mixed in now with the song idea that I brought in. I remember hearing that for the first time in our tour bus. We were not in California yet. The first time I heard that those two ideas combined, becoming Prophet, Priest, and King, was in a bus somewhere. Then, if I remember correctly, when we broke down and were stuck in California for weeks, that's when we really started working hard on the song, putting it together, making it, an actual song that we could push and record and all that. And here's the thing, everybody, like Kevin said at the beginning, the song starts with that bass line that everybody recognizes. And I remember it was actually Michael that gave me the idea to start the song with some kind of bass line. Michael, you might have even sung something. You might have even said something. Do a bass line that kind of follows the guitar, something along those lines. So, there's a sense in which I did not come up with the idea of a bass line, but once Michael started kind of giving me ideas of it started like this, then I just started playing around with it. And in California, that's where that bass line was born. And and that's when it became the song that is there now, I guess.
So that's the kind of thing Kevin means when he talks about the process. So the songwriting process, who knows what's going to happen or where the idea is going to come from.
Yeah, but that bass line now, that's the one point in the show I always know that people are going to hoop and holler is that bass line. That's the high point.
So if it's going bad, we just say, play Prophet, Priest, and King, so we can get out of here.
Speaking of bass, one of our favorite bass players, John Graham, is concurring that it was either in the Olson basement or
Lee's 4-track.
Or Lee's 4-track. Yeah. So thank you, John, and hi to John, and
very cool.
And a couple of other people that are hopping on that we haven't seen yet and said hey to. Charlie Brim. Hi, Charlie.
Yes. Charlie. And somebody here says, I remember the first time I heard the record, it was in a Christian bookstore in Maryland at a listening station. And Prophet, Priest, and King was the first song. And as soon as I heard it, I called my brother and friends over to hear it and skipped through a few songs. And we all ended up buying a copy that day. And the beauty of that story is that they spent money on us.
I also see Shane Ellis on here. I wonder how many times, if he has a count of how many times he heard that song.
Oh, gosh.
That's right, Sean.
Shane, got any estimate of how many times you've heard that song?
Hey,
if you do, post it in the comments.
Speaking of rarities,
Tell him who Shane Ellis is.
The idea and a rarity of listening to a listening station in a bookstore. That's that's a thing from the past.
It's been
that'll never happen again.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're saying
it may.
Oh, Shane's joining us here too. Shane.
Yeah. So
Welcome,
Shane toured
Shane.
with us as our front of house engineer, the guy who.
Oh yeah, I think it glitched for me a little bit, so I didn't hear. I think you guys said that, and I didn't.
He says 40,000 times.
40,000
Yeah. There we go. He wins. So.
70,000.
All right. You know what? I think I hit the wrong. Yeah. I keep hitting the wrong button. Okay, there we go. One thing I was going to mention, because you guys keep saying it, this infamous California trip that happened. There's
you
just
really
so you know,
been there, Kevin.
just so you know, I was not there for it. They're all still in therapy over it because it was.
It's true, man. Good grief.
When did that happen? That happened spring of '96 at some point.
Something like that. We were on tour opening for Code of Ethics, and somebody else was Echoing Green on that.
Jesus Music.
Jesus Music. Yeah.
Is that right?
And maybe another band here and there, but it was. I remember snowboarding for the first time. We were stuck there for a number of weeks, and the family we were staying with, Luke had a couple of snowboards. So I remember going up to Mount Shasta or near Mount Shasta to do a little playing in the snow. So I don't know what it feels like. It wouldn't necessarily have been spring. Or March. On the summer side of spring. Anyway,
I think it was March. My soon-to-be fiance had to go to the hospital, and I called 911 from California to get the ambulance in Georgia to go get her. So, hey, she's good. And 25 years later, she's still good.
I remember that.
Would that have been 95 or 96? It was
96.
March
96. Because I started playing with the band in May of '96, and I think for the first 9 months, every story somehow came back to California. California that.
Yeah.
Hey, let me say
they were stuck at somebody's house, broken down for how many weeks?
3 weeks.
Let me say something about that. And it's an amazing story because these people didn't know us. We played the show, and I don't know if we met them at the show that night, and we had the issues with the bus, but they fed us and let us live in their house for that long in the living room, and we just took the place over. And they got their church to let us use their van so we could go and do acoustic gigs in towns around.
That's right.
We had met them about a year or so ahead before that. We had been out on that side of the country before and had played a couple of churches in the area and had met them. Maybe they were a host home before. I don't know. I don't think so, but it's possible. At that time, we were kind of towards the end of the days when we would stay in host homes. But
I believe that it was during that time that we actually also came up with the name, with our band name.
It was right around there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Rob Hobby from Tifton, which is the small town and Smalltown Poets, he says hello. So, hey, Rob. And my brother,
hi, Rob.
They're on here, too.
Yep. We've got, Diego from Bolivia has some kind words about the whole album. And
very cool.
Yeah, very cool. So that whole California thing I highlighted because that was definitely a backdrop that was going on during the critical formation of this song. Let's move a little bit forward because when I I had met Danny and Michael when it was still Villanelle, and they were looking for a guitar player and for that Code of Ethics tour, but I was still in college. And so the next time I ran into you guys, you had a 3-song demo. In fact, my first rehearsal with the band, I drove down to Atlanta from Nashville. I walk in and you guys were stuffing envelopes of those 3-song demo tapes, sending them out to record companies,
Oh my gosh.
which seems hysterical to think that people, that's what people did.
Yeah.
So what was from that point of, hey, we mashed these 2-song ideas together, that's starting to take shape, because the demo version, which is also in the Rarities package, is pretty close to it's this, I think the arrangement's exactly the same as what made it on the album, but it's definitely different. But where did that recording take place, and who was involved with that one?
Steve Dady is a guy that we had gotten to know through the REX music connections that we had, Mark Hollingsworth, Dave Bunker. So we had gotten to know him. He was a producer engineer that had, I think, been in Texas for a while, and we were enamored with the fact that he had worked on some John Mellencamp recordings or something like that. I don't know. Am I making that up, or does that sound like it's right?
I believed you.
I don't remember.
So,
sure. Go with it.
We had that connection, and he was in Nashville, and we were able to work it out that it was a good place for us to be all together. I think Miguel may have still been living in Nashville at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And Steven, the guy that played guitar on that, Stephen Lywicki that played guitar on that demo, was in Nashville. So it ended up being a good hub for us to hop in and record those 3 songs. And Steve did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
He did
I think, Byron, you had to play electronic kit, right? You had to you triggered the drums from an electronic kit. Oh, your audio. You're muted. Did you mute?
He muted himself.
Oh, I'm that guy.
There you go.
That guy.
There's always one in every call.
Sorry about that. So I was thinking about this earlier today, and I could not picture myself playing drums. I pictured the room. I remember the room where it was, and I think you're right. I think we did trigger those drums. But what I did remember, and I think, unless I'm completely lost it, do you remember the talkback mic? So in a recording studio, the talkback mic is where the person at the console can communicate to the person in the booth or in the other room. And usually that may be built into the board, or they're using a different mic. This mic was in the nose of a stuffed moose. Do you remember this?
I don't remember that.
I do.
There was the head of a moose.
I remember. Yeah.
There was a head of a moose on the wall, and they put the microphone in his nose. So basically, the engineer, the producer, would talk to the moose so that the person in the other room could hear it.
That's funny. Yeah. I also remember that it was a bit frustrating for you, but you handled it really well. That because of where you were having to track from, there was some latency. Like you felt like you were having to guess where the beat was.
Yeah, it was almost like
I played with drummers like that before.
Like it was kind of the latency of the sound getting to you, and then when you hit the pad, that triggering and then it getting it back to you, like somewhere up in that back and forth of the digital audio was difficult to find the pipe, but you did a good job.
That's where you learn. That's where I learned when a producer says we'll fix it in the mix that it actually works. Sometimes they can actually do that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Real quick, I was just going to mention that that version of Prophet, Priest, and King is in the folder, the Evolution of a Song folder for Prophet, Priest, and King. But in the Rarities set is also the actual 3-song demo tape, not an actual tape. You can't download a tape, but the recordings.
Yeah.
And so you can hear those 3 songs. It was Prophet, Priest, and King, Who You Are, and Everything I Hate.
Everything I Hate. It's still cool calling it a tape.
Yeah. And we'll get to that when we do this about Everything I Hate.
Hey, Kevin, let me answer this question before it disappears.
Okay, yes. Which one? So I can put it on the screen.
Green asks, he says, I have a vague memory of seeing.
Oh, yes, there we go.
A previous version, sort of.
Oh my gosh, man, that was
Michael, do you remember opening for Ricky Skaggs? It was a Baptist church in Atlanta,
Wayuka Road.
Wayuka Road Baptist. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the
Oh,
29th.
Ricky Skaggs, what a guy. I mean,
Oh,
I just remember us sitting and listening to him talk. He was so gracious and, you know, giving us his life story and encouragement, and such an awesome dude.
I remember thinking, are they sure they got the right band? Did they just accidentally call us? Are we supposed to be here? It was so awesome. I thought I had to be a mistake.
That was a weird pairing. And John Johnson says the Villanelle recordings at Belmont. Kevin, did you ever know we recorded at Belmont before we even met you?
I believe so. I believe so. You recorded in the old studio. That my freshman year, they were building a brand new studio. Now they own half of Nashville, so they have lots of studios. Yeah. John Graham says that Ricky Skaggs hung out with you guys all day.
Yeah, he was great. He was so nice.
Good times.
I'm sure he still is.
We should hang out.
Going back to that 3-song demo, the one thing that's interesting to me is, you know, that's, like I said, I was very familiar with the Villanelle album because I'd met you guys and you had given me a copy and, you know, mentioned needing a guitar player, but the timing wasn't right. But then fast forward, you know, that was like 9 months later. And I got the 3-song demo. And, you know, to me, thinking about it, at that time, you know, with everything that was going on in Christian music at that time, there was a lot of very, very poppy pop stuff, and most of it leaned very pop. And even the rock stuff felt pretty produced, but I really felt like hearing it, like, this is something really different. It's catchy songs, but the lyrics are interesting, but it has a really cool sound. And I'm like, yeah, I'll hitch my wagon to these guys. And look where it's gotten me. I'm in a basement.
We apologize. I remember being in Steve Dady's studio working on that demo, and different guitarists, I don't know how many, 1 or 2 guys being in and out. Like Miguel, you brought, I don't want to say the name, but you brought by a guitarist with a pretty impressive resume who's playing with some big Christian artists. And he listened, and we were all excited for him to hear. And he kind of pulled you aside and said, "Man, this is not for me, man. Thank you."
Yeah.
But you know, nobody knew that the demo would get us that record deal, and
so my question at this point, because, you know, recording has changed a lot since then. Back then, an artist without a record deal could not afford to go to a studio and pay for a professional quality, like commercial release. And so it wasn't cheap to record even a demo, but you didn't have a producer necessarily, or you know, you guys mentioned Steve Dady, but I thought it still really had a cool sound that at that time, a lot of people in the demo process were really just trying to get songs recorded so they could have as a reference. But it really sounded like that was the first really tapping into the sound of what would become, you know, the sound people know of Smalltown Poets. What were you guys thinking about that at that point? Or was it just, we're just got to go, we don't have time, just track some guitars, track some drums and bass, and let's get this done?
We were starting to have a vision of what we wanted to sound like. A lot of the stuff, if I remember correctly, we were being pretty intentional about what we were trying to do. Because, you know, there was a new recipe, I guess, just by me coming in the band. Just like when you joined the band later, Kevin, we knew what was there. I still remember the first time I played with Byron. And I remember, I think back then we were also doing a song called, well, it was originally a Villanelle song called Call Me Christian, which ended up on our second album, Listen Closely. But I remember the first time that we were playing that song, and I don't know if it was the first time we were actually playing it in a show or the first time we were rehearsing, but Byron and I were locking eyes, looking at each other, going, what is happening? You know, like, there's something going on here. Like, this is, you know what I'm saying? Like, the magic, whatever you want to call it. It was happening. So once we knew that there was something there that was starting to feel special, we were putting thought into what we were doing when we were writing. And even in that 3-song demo that we did with Steve Dady, we were pretty intentional about what we were trying to do. Keyboard sounds too. A lot of the keyboard sounds that you hear on Prophet, Priest, and King, and Everything I Hate, which I don't know if we'll get to talk a lot more about later, but they were pretty intentional. We were going for a specific sound, if I remember.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember a whole lot, but that's what I do remember. We were going for something. We weren't just like, oh, well, I guess this will work. No, we were thinking through things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Randy Brown says, "Hey guys," he used to be
Randy
the
Brown,
driver / road manager, and also John Mark Jameson. He
John Mark,
and he
Yeah,
says
there's Mark-
we were the
And
ultimate
Mark Hollingsworth
garage
there.
band because we went from garage to garage trying to get our vehicles repaired.
Oh.
Yep.
That's a
Oh
point
yeah, I
well
was going
taken.
to. Here's a question from Philip. He's wondering what guitars were used for Prophet, Priest, and King, and effects and amps. And I'm assuming he's talking about the studio version that's on the album. Honestly, I can't remember. I know that there was some Stratocaster, but I don't know if it was on that particular song. I know that particular Strat I played on the first record was stolen from my apartment. I had the Les Paul that still on the wall back there behind me that was used on that record. But
you didn't have the Jazzmaster yet?
No,
so.
we got
No.
that for the second record.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm not exactly. That might have been that Les Paul, and
I'm pretty sure it was the Les Paul. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ardent had an enormous amount of amps. And this was my first time in a studio where there was that much options for the guitar player. Belmont had a very nice studio, but they honestly didn't have a lot of gear like at the time, like amps and stuff to just play around with. But Ardent had an enormous amount of these crazy classic vintage amps that some very famous people have played on their records and such. So it was just kind of like being a kid in the candy store. So I know for that first record, I went overboard and was like determined to use a different thing on every track. And that's why I lost track. I was even writing it down for a while, but I know I lost track of everything. Because I was like, now I pace myself a little bit more. But.
So I do remember two of the amps that were used a good bit because I thought it was an interesting concept. I hadn't seen it done before, but John Hampton had this boutique amplifier made by a company called Buddha amps, which was a low wattage tube amplifier. And then he had something like the Tremolux that you later would buy, Kevin.
He had a Tremolux.
What is it? So he was using the Buddha to drive the Tremolux, and that was several of the guitar tones on that record came that way. So kind of using the Buddha as a stomp box in a sense.
Yeah, I know. Also,
don't try that at home because it can be dangerous.
I don't know if I don't know if it was for Prophet, Priest, and King, but I know that one of the combinations that Hampton liked. Hampton also had produced the Jim Blossom's first two records, and they have that kind of clean but mildly overdriven sound. And so he had this high watt amp, which is a high wattage amp, and that really drives the cabinet clean, but then you'd put in a tube screamer in the middle and it was just this perfect sound with a Strat. And I know we use that some, and that might be on Prophet, Priest, and King as well. The one guitar amp I definitely know what was used, we used for Monkey's Paw was this Marshall head that the engineer had that it's called a variable AC, where you put this thing on it that drives the tubes even hotter. And the amp sounds like it's about to explode and burn the building down, but the tone you get out of it is amazing. And that's what's on Monkey's Paw. But let's see. What we're talking about Prophet, Priest, and King. What about anything else from the studio for the actual final version that we remember?
I just remembered something. I had almost forgotten about Hampton. You know, this John Hampton, this world-class producer who's worked with all these incredible artists, you know, and he had all these little tricks and these idiosyncrasies. I just remember Prophet, Priest, and King opens with a pad. It's just a two-note chord. It's just a 1 and a 5 on a pad. It starts the song and it's at the very end of the song. And if you really listen, it goes all the way through the song. So Hampton, I guess we were not working with MIDI or something, because he just took 2 pieces of tape and he had me tape down the 1 and the 5, the G and the D, and said, "You can leave." And he just taped those keys down and he tracked it for 5 minutes. That was how I did that whole pass of that particular synth. And then for all the
So well played.
and for all the synth lead stuff on that record, some of you guys will remember that when we were demoing the song and talking about intentionality, Miguel, we were like, we want to have a bunch of keyboard sounds on these demos that sound like the Cars. We were kind of stuck. We were using that band as a reference band when it came to synth lead part. So we went to the, like a Mars Music or I don't remember what it was, in
Rhythm City.
Or Guitar Center?
It may have been Rhythm City, yeah.
But no, in Franklin, Tennessee, right?
Oh, it was in Tennessee. Okay.
I think so. And bought this rack mount Roland vintage synth unit that I still have somewhere, or Noah has it. My son has it in his studio. And anyway, we kept that with it. It worked so well. We took it with us to Memphis when we did the actual record, and a ton of the sounds you hear on that first Poets record are from that little vintage synth unit that we bought to do the demos with, specifically so we could sound like the Cars. And I was riding around this week. My brother Rich was in the car, and we were listening to something, either a live Poets thing, whatever. I was playing him something, and he said, "Man, that reminds me of the Cars." And I'm like, "You got that right."
Yeah, well, that was also the synth sounds on Everything I Hate was that same unit.
And you mentioned that, and it worked, because I remember a lot of people listening to those demos, those 3-song demo, and that was one of the things that will, the ear will perk up and go, "Oh, those synth sounds." They were like, it's got a real like old classic sound, but at the same time it's cool and new and modern. And it was that mixture of what we were doing with some of those old school car sounds, the Cars keyboard sounds. So it worked.
You guys geeked out for a minute on guitar amps. And
Byron got up and left.
Look, so when we were working on that song, going to the studio, we knew exactly what it needed. After you hear that pad, you hear the drums come in, the loop come in, and the loop was on this little bitty DW snare.
Yeah.
And so the what makes that special is so this record was in '96 when we were recording this record, right? Late '96, right?
Yes, it was October of '96.
And I got married in July of '96. And this drum was my first financial in-debt victory that I had with my wife, because I convinced her that I had to have this for this song. And I didn't tell her how much it cost or what was going on. I just put it on a credit card. Hey, credit card, it's just free money, right? So later, through a lot of Dave Ramsey help, this has finally been paid off.
It only cost you $10,000 after interest.
Speaking of,
our friend who's watching, Joel, shout out to Joel. He's always given us crap about not letting people know how they can help us. Well, we are working on a new album, and there's people that are always like, how can we help with the new album? And so if you're interested, it's scrolling away, but it's going to come back around. We do have a virtual tip jar. If you feel so inclined, you can hit that tip jar and it'll go towards the new album, which we haven't really talked about much today. But I will say it's pretty amazing. It's one of those moments where I'm like, wow, I get to be in this band, because I think it's it's Smalltown Poets v version 3 or whatever it is in Spinal Tap they say at the end.
Well, you've been saying it's not your grandma's Poets.
I said this ain't your daddy's Smalltown Poets. That's what I said. Right. But anyway, yeah, that's coming along. It should be out hopefully early on in 2021. And if you are interested in helping us out, that's how you can help. We're not going to do a whole big fan funded campaign, because I don't know. It felt like a lot. It felt like I had a second job when we did that.
You suffered.
But all right.
Oh, can I answer that question, Kev?
Yes.
About the band name change.
Oh yeah, let me bring that back up. There was a couple questions I wanted to get to.
Ben Batchelor was asking about he said,
yes, there we go.
for 3 days back in the Villanelle days, and that was in Arkansas, I believe he said. So this confuses some people. It confuses me, as a matter of fact. But 3 of us, me, Michael, and Byron, went to high school together, and we played under a few different names all the way through high school, college, and then as young men, just coast to coast, man, just doing it. Before we ever met these other 2 guys, Kevin and Miguel, in Nashville. So we had this name Villanelle. It was the perfect name. Nobody could say it, spell it, or remember it. Just
great,
genius.
great meaning though.
It does have some meaning, which I'll let Michael explain in a minute. But we knew that as we were changing personnel with the band and our style was changing, we were really ending one band and starting a new one. And the way I remember it, and I could be wrong, was that Michael and I were driving in his pickup truck from Atlanta to Nashville to the Gospel Music Association convention. And we had to have a name for the band by the time we got there. So we gave ourselves those 4 hours to finally nail it down after weeks or months of going through pages and pages of options. The funny thing is, I mean, the way I look at it is the name Smalltown, and we didn't plan this, but in a way, the name Smalltown Poets is almost a translation of the word Villanelle, and we did that by accident. So I'm setting the table for you there, Michael.
True story. So a villanelle is a fixed form of poetry, like a haiku or a sonnet. Haikus are short. Sonnets are a little bit longer. A villanelle is a fixed form of poetry that's longer than a sonnet, has a certain number of lines, certain rhyme schemes. Some of the lines repeat. And Danny and I had learned about that form of poetry in the creative writing class that we had met in high school. So we thought that was a cool connection. We liked the meaning of that. When you're writing a fixed form of poetry, you can write about anything, right? There's a lot of freedom inside of that, but it's not a villanelle unless it hits those criteria, the certain number of lines. I think it's 19 lines, iambic pentameter. And so we thought that was a great metaphor for, our lives of faith, following Jesus. But there's a lot of freedom in that, a lot of freedom that we're given to be who God's created us to be. So we loved that, but we got really tired of people calling us vanilla and vanelli and
when I started playing with the band, we were still doing shows under the name Villanelle. And I think I maybe did 10 shows or maybe a few more under that name. And I could not believe, I don't think anyone introduced us properly before. There was one lady that was so nervous that she was going to introduce the band. And she kept asking us over and over again. And then she went out on stage and just completely fell apart. And I can't even remember what she said. And was that the one where she just kind of walked away and said enjoy and just walked away? I can't remember. It was just the most awkward introduction ever because she got a mental block on the name. Smalltown Poets. That never happened with Smalltown Poets.
So if Mr. Bussey is watching, I know he's on Facebook some. If he's watching, he's the one who introduced us to that form of poetry. And if I'm remembering correctly, it's a French form of poetry. But these French guys would go out to the small towns outside of Italy and write about, that kind of life. So it was like coming back around to what Danny was saying. When we came up with the name Smalltown Poets, it was a while later that we realized, that kind of is what Villanelle kind of means. It's a small town. It was these French poets going and writing about small towns, and kind of fun to make that connection.
We've got a question from Diego. Can you guys share any anecdote or curiosity about the album cover? That simple yet iconic photo of you guys in the grass. Now,
Thunder Image Group.
Yes. The funny thing about this photo is it was done in Nashville, downtown Nashville. I don't think it's ivy. We're actually sitting in ivy, and I don't think that little square looks the same anymore.
I think it's got a building on top of it.
It might. I was there for work recently or last year when we could travel, and I walked by, and I believe it looked totally different. But what was so funny about that picture that this question made me think of is I know Danny and I were somewhere. It was after a show, and I know Danny and I were standing there. Several of you might have been there as well, but someone walked up to us, after the show to sign it, and she was so determined, like, or knew exactly. She's like, I know exactly where this photo was taken. It was taken in downtown Richmond. This is that. This is, I'm pointing at all the things in the picture, and Danny's just standing there nodding, going, no, you were so wrong. You couldn't be more wrong.
There were people that thought that the picture was taken in multiple cities, that we wore the same clothes and kind of set ourselves in the same grouping, but we took the picture in different places, and so that it was combined from a few different locations. We had some people that were convinced that it was that deep.
We should have done that.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, and when you're a band on tour, you're wearing the same clothes every day anyway, so that's entirely possible.
So why not?
So
Kev, also, if you really want to dig this up and look at it, then you're sick. You need to get a life. But there's video, there's footage of us from that photo shoot. Somebody was following us with a video camera, and it was bonus content on our CD.
That's right.
Enhanced CD, yeah.
There was bonus video content on our first CD, and that I know I've seen it online somewhere, so you can find it on YouTube.
I think it's on our website, on our YouTube channel.
Is it? Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah,
so
some of it is.
Watch that photo
some
shoot.
Of it. Maybe not all of it, but some of that content.
Yeah.
If you have crazy amounts of free time, you can watch that.
Yeah, I saw one of those clips recently, and we all looked very confused. I think we were confused. All right, let's any final thoughts, or if there's any more questions about Prophet, Priest, and King specifically. But guys, any final thoughts about it after the final version, the studio was done? It's from its humble beginnings to where it ended up. Any thoughts, comments, how it did commercially?
Well, it didn't end up being the first single. It was the record company wanted it to be the first single. It didn't end up being the first single because the demo that you mentioned earlier that we'd recorded with Steve Dady, I had let a friend of ours put it out on a compilation, the demo version of Everything I Hate, and some rock radio DJs had picked up on that song and had started playing it, even though it wasn't officially released by a record company or anything. And it was doing pretty well on rock radio. So the record company was like, well, I guess we have to release another song as a first single. And but then I remember Prophet, Priest, and King being released, and we were all surprised that it didn't make number one.
It got close, so close. So Rob Jones, yes, you did.
Absolutely.
Are you talking about my tan? Because I'm feeling really good about my color.
Michael was actually feeling really good about the way he looked today. Yeah. Looking tan and yes, and we'll talk more about that because one of our Rarities discussions will be about Everything I Hate, and I've got some there's some good stories about that whole thing that go deeper into what Michael was just talking about. But I think this one made it up into the top 5 on Christian Radio. I can't remember. Yeah. It was close. It was really close.
It definitely was one of the funnest songs to play live. Yeah. Always.
Still is.
And the video, we could talk another hour.
Somebody asked about the video. We should mention the video real quick because there was a question about that. Let me see if I can find it. I think it might have been Shane who was asking about it. Yes, it was Shane and
Jen Pearson and Jimmy Abag. Gosh, loved working with them. We got to work with so many creative people, so many people that are just so good at their craft, and they're good people. And that was an amazing experience. Learned a lot just from, making that video with those guys.
Speaking of that video, it was filmed right next door to Belmont University. Belmont's taken in some of that land since then, but those apartments where the Elvis thing is shot is still there. It's on Belmont Boulevard. And Ben Pearson actually lived on the street next to Belmont, and the basement scenes are in his house. And that was actually his dog. So if you didn't make the connection on the live Zoom video we did of Prophet, Priest, and King, Michael's dog was an homage to the dog from the video. But
Molly.
yeah, that rickshaw was, what was the deal with that rickshaw? Was it in the back of a truck? I can't remember how that thing was hooked up.
It was being pulled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Put it in the back of a truck for the motion shots. Yeah.
It was up on a trailer, right? And then pulled.
Yeah. Hey, Mark Hollingsworth is here.
Yes,
Mark.
Yeah, Mark. Mark was our manager. We owe it all to Mark. And he said the first album had 7 top 10 songs.
Because of
unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
Yes,
Because
unbelievable.
of Mark, right? Sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
And Mark was the one that got Ben and Jimmy Abeg on that project. They were people he had worked with. Is that not right?
I think
Mark definitely knew those guys for sure.
That was another one of those moments when I thought that there was they probably were going to realize who we were and who they were and just quit in the middle of it and go, why am I doing this for? You just thought all day, I'm at Ben Pearson's house. Jimmy Abeg's has a camera pointed at me. That was super an honor for sure.
I think the puppets were Jimmy A's. He had done that whole hat thing, I think, was his brainchild.
And you mentioned Mark. One of my first memories of Mark Hollingsworth was I think we were meeting with Forefront Records at the time. It was was working alongside Arden, and I remember Mark showing up.
He is watching, just careful what you say.
I know, but he showed up. He's wearing a suit and had a briefcase. And I remember looking at this man who's now our manager, and I'm going, "We've arrived."
He's got a briefcase. Because he had a briefcase.
And speaking of Mark, if you watch the "There's Only You" video, Mark is the one who takes the cake to the face and actually got whiplash in the filming of that video. Turns out cakes can hurt you, so be careful.
Yeah.
He started the fight.
But Mark did say to tell the folks about the notorious Ardent Band House. There's this Ardent Studios were recorded in Memphis, and there was this house next door, which was the studio owned, and if you were there recording for a long time, you might end up staying in there. I don't know if this is where Mark was going. There might be a different direction he's going, but I know that the thing I will always remember is that the lead singer from the Gin Blossoms had been staying there right before we arrived, just him and his dog. And apparently his dog had an enormous amount of fleas.
Stop telling the story. I can't take it.
And slept on the couch. And so we'd be there sitting on this couch all night, after recording. And then I remember literally being in the studio, looking down and slapping my leg as I'm recording guitar tracks because I've got fleas on me from this dang couch. But this house was something special. It also had this creepy picture of Elvis when you open the basement door.
Yeah,
that would scare people. And
was it Mabel? Was it the Mabel, the legendary?
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah. It had the reputation of being haunted.
Yes.
And she had a name, Mabel.
So yeah. All right. Well, any final thoughts, questions about Prophet, Priest, and King? I think we covered a lot of it.
Well, a lot of people have said hello, and I'm sorry we can't say hello back to everybody at one time. And one person mentioned, I think it was Brad Isbell, somebody that said they were praying for my dad who's in the hospital. Thank you for all. It was Brad Isbell. Thank you, buddy. He is in the hospital, and appreciate the prayers, everybody. And look, Mark Hollingsworth says that Mabel broke his glasses and gave him a mild concussion.
I think he's referring to the cake.
Oh, okay. It's a better story with Mabel.
But yeah, the better story with the ghost. But
I got one last memory about Prophet, Priest, and King.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, it was the first. I don't know where we were. We were playing a show, and Arden Records, they, I guess, overnight us a copy, a cassette copy of the first mix. Yeah. And when the first time we listened to it in a stereo that wasn't so good. I think even one of the speakers wasn't working, something like that.
It was like a rental band.
Something. And we were so disappointed at how it sounded. I was like, oh man, this doesn't sound great. And then we finally listened to it again in a good stereo. and then the excitement came back.
Yes.
We were like, wow,
We
this
were
is
playing
turning
in a
out pretty
barn.
good.
Yeah,
We
it was
played
that.
in
It
the
was the night we were
barn.
playing in that barn where they had
Yeah.
this gigantic heater.
That's right.
And the directions to the show were literally like, turn left at the old oak tree. Like, where are we? We pulled up to a barn in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, this is where we're playing.
And you know,
In the barn.
it ended up being an amazing show. It was great. That
I
show
remember that
rocked.
too, Miguel. We listened either we listened in the van and it sounded crappy, so we went into the house, or vice versa. But we were really bummed the first time, and then when we heard it on that good stereo, we thought, we've arrived.
Yeah.
We've got a lawyer, or we got a manager in a suit and a briefcase.
Man,
we got a mix.
So one of the things we haven't talked about, and I think we should in these last couple of minutes, but I think that lots of things about the song hold up over time, but the words, I think, what the song is about is something to talk about. I think that's one of the reasons that we pursued that idea. We felt like that there was something there with those words, and something that would be timeless, something that was true about that. So, Danny, what do you got about the lyrics?
Well, first of all, I want to point out that as we traveled the country and beyond, people would always mention, the Duluth line. I dined with the king at my home in Duluth, and they thought that I just found a city, because I wrote that line, just found a city that rhymed with truth, and Duluth was convenient. But I actually lived in Duluth, Georgia, which is obviously not in Minnesota, although it is named for Duluth, Minnesota. It's a suburb of Atlanta, and that's where I was living at the time. But the song really just came from the idea of the fact that we all have the privilege of communing with the creator of the universe, and it's okay that we can't hang out necessarily, most of us, with dignitaries and princes and kings, because, if we read our Bibles right, and from personal experience, we get to commune with the creator that, prophet, priest, and king are some of those titles from scripture, but that is a real privilege. And it just I really don't know what sparked the idea to write all that down. But then I took the lyrics to Michael, and he helped me finish them out, and that's kind of where that came from.
And we weren't sure that people would respond well to the kind of hints of sarcasm in the lyrics. We're like, hey, can we get away with this? This is going to work. Right. But we were writing the kind of thing that we wanted to hear, and that we found engaging, and hopefully others along the way have found it engaging. But yeah, I think that there's just some good words.
And the Chuck and Die line didn't stand the test of time, but changing to Will and Kate brought us to the new millennium and beyond. So we're all set for the future.
That's what Michael sings now when we do it live. He normally says Will and Kate.
It dawned on me today, and I'm not trying to make a humble brag. This literally came up in conversation today, and it was a thought that I had today. But our band was nominated for a Grammy in 2 millenniums. So
that's right.
Let's let that sit with you.
I'm gonna have to walk away from the mic and just think about that for a while. The lyric discussion, I think when we talk about everything I hate in the future, that we really need to dive into those lyrics, because I think there's some interesting things that happen both with the release that you already alluded to, some, Michael, but related to those lyrics and just the state of Christian music at the time, and maybe some of the topics that we dug into lyrically, I think would be fun to talk about. Where did that comment from Ed go? Oh, Ed says he feels like we still have 7 more top 10s in the hopper. It is worth pointing out that Ed is a comedian.
Yes. And is occasionally sarcastic. So.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
Yes.
Who knows? He's a good old Georgia boy.
Oh man, wish we could see Ed again.
All right.
We will. As you get your SP
awesome
Rarities,
guy.
I went through the Rarity stuff just yesterday. It's really fun. It's fun to see the evolution for me of some of those songs from really rough demos. Some of these demos are so rough I'm almost embarrassed for people to hear.
We
them.
call them writing. We call those writing demos. So like there's a writing demo. We're like, guys, can you hear the idea in here somewhere?
Right.
Then there's the demo of, hey, this is the song arrangement.
Right. Yeah. Some of that was never supposed to be heard, but it's really fun to see the evolution of some of the songs and then some of the artwork that's been put in the Rarities folder and a lot of obscure stuff, some live stuff. Miguel's dramatic reading.
Kevin. Good job, Kevin.
That was the high point for me. Was
Kevin,
in Texas.
You put in the instrumentals. There's a folder of instrumentals. Is there a reason you didn't call it karaoke?
Well, people can call it what they want. They can. Shane says that, or we might have 10 more top sevens.
That I can get on board with that.
I'll take that too.
Yeah, just
We're
final
some of the
reminder
biggest
that
losers in Christian music. We've lost more awards, I think, than anyway.
It's just an honor to be nominated.
Well, we got one, I think. Didn't we win a Billboard Video Award?
Billboard Music Video Award.
For Prophet Priest and King.
Yeah, for Prophet Priest and King.
Yeah, I think that's made up. That's
there we go.
That's made up. It's a rumor.
I don't think I ever received such reward
fake news
or award or whatever it is. But a reminder, all this Rarities stuff, content could be yours at smalltownpoets.tv/store. And if you're interested in helping us get this next album over the finish line and want to throw some support our way, you can hit our virtual tip jar at paypal.me/smalltownpoets. New music, the new album is coming along nicely, and hopefully early 2021. I just listened to some of those teaser mixes that Danny sent us the other day, and it was pretty moving. I'm looking forward to it.
I don't think I've heard that.
Yeah, Noah doesn't want anybody to hear them. I couldn't remember if I had sent them out to everybody or just to Kevin, but my son is producing the new round of songs, and I just did a few bounces just for me to listen to what I've done.
Well, because we've been recording in Broxton, Georgia, which is not near anything. So if you're passing through Georgia, chances are you're
Ed Wiley.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
John Graham.
But anyway, I went in June and did a bunch of guitar work. And then some of the guys went back, when was that, August? And did some more vocals and some of the bass and stuff like that. And I hadn't heard a lot of the development of these songs. So Danny sent me some rough mixes. But speaking of keyboard sounds, the keyboard sounds on it, I could just listen to those all day. It's so good. So good. Well, Noah's doing an excellent job. So
I was going to say thank you, but that's all Noah.
So all right. Thanks guys for
awesome.
And we'll take these suggestions and we'll at least pray about them, right? The suggestions from like Brad, Isbell, and those guys saying that they want us to release a live album. We should do that at some point.
We should. Maybe we'll be talking about that soon. We'll think about it.
And hey, Mark Hollingsworth said, I have a stack of thank you notes for you guys to sign and mail.
We haven't finished the ones you gave us back.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, Dana Weaver jumped in. Hey Dana. Yeah. All right.
We miss you too, Dana.
Yeah, Dana played guitar for us for a while too.
Yeah. Kevin, we should do this again. It's like homecoming.
Yeah. Kevin, speaking of doing it again, do we have a plan? I'd love to do this again. Let's talk some more Rarities soon.
Yeah, we'll get it scheduled ASAP. We just got to find out when you guys are free. So
let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. And we'll catch you later.
See you guys. You got an extra hand there behind you. See you.